is what we want to do today is give you the confidence to get started. That's the fundamental thing.
Yeah.
And we don't want to bore you, but I think what we want to try and do today is just highlight what makes a really good CATE claim. And in particular, talk to you about the criteria and what the expectation is around that, because these things don't write themselves. And compared to an NTF, which is very much about yourself, and we know that it's about I, a CATE becomes we. It's about understanding not necessarily the project that you're working on, but the collaboration that underpin the project and how you've come together as a team. Because remember, it's a collaborative award for teaching excellence. So it's about expressing a narrative around that collaboration. Dawne, please jump in.
Well, it's very easy to get seduced by the actual project, which the project is lovely to read about, but it is about how the individual members of the team work and collaborate together to make that project happen. And that's, I think, sometimes where people go a little bit wrong. It's a fantastic project, but actually they miss the point of the criteria around that collaborative aspect. There's obviously a real skill to writing these claims. If you've tried before, you know, there's a strict word count and a word limit, and adhering to the criteria is absolutely key. And it's very much, if you look on the slide there, you know, talking about getting yourself a mentor, getting yourself support from other people who've been successful in the past, but also to note that, you know, whereas NTF have 3 nominations from each institution annually, there is only 1 allowed from each institution for a CATE. And to be nominated by your institution is in itself an absolutely huge achievement. And I still don't think we celebrate that enough. No, so the first time we put in for a CATE, we were unsuccessful and we got it on the 2nd attempt. The CATE is coming up to 10 years old next year, 2026, we're 10 years old as an award, and it's gathering and gaining momentum. So it's becoming more competitive, and the CATE, just as the NTF, is an actual competition. So out of the hundreds and hundreds of people who apply each year, I think there's only about 15 or 16 nominated, you know, who are successful every year. What I would say is, if you aren't successful, go away, act on the feedback, work as a team. And the benefits you get from working with a team are just second to none anyway, whether you win or not. But working on it, adding some more data and information, seeking some other help and advice and support, but don't give up, because it isn't uncommon to have 2 or 3 attempts to get that over the line as to where you need it. Anything else to add on that one, Andy?
No, and I've just put the outlines there, but I think what we'd like to do today is, I think from today, the other thing I would ask you to be is honest about where you think your project sits at the moment.
Yeah.
Because we do these events and it's very clear that, oh, we're not there yet. If you're not there yet, great. Today becomes an action plan for where you go next and the kind of evidence that you've got to pull in. If you're sitting here, one of the things we've started doing at Portsmouth, because when projects form at Portsmouth, people come together, they don't necessarily know why they come together. And that underpinning collaboration framework or the methodology of working collaboratively doesn't exist for new teams. So one of the things I'm trying to do is, when we create a new learning and teaching project, I treat it as an embryonic CATE award.
Yeah.
As if we're going to start this project in 24, it's going to be CATE in 27. And from the day one, we're going to go through the basics of, let me think about so we've created this new centre at Portsmouth, and we did a staff away day early September to bring the team together. And I stood up as, you know, one of the heads of the section and said, we're going to be a CATE award in 3 years. And these are the principles on which we have to base our thinking. So you may be going to bed those principles in, even if from today you then go and start a new project. Collaboration has to be at the central. And sometimes we do these workshops, and I go away and talk to the teams, and they struggle. They can demonstrate the impact, not a problem. They can talk about that very much. What they can't do is then articulate the collaboration that underpin what they did. And it's a bit like the horse has bolted and they've done it, and they're, oh God, we didn't think, we just did it. We just worked together. That's what hopefully we can show you today, how that narrative needs to develop around that.
Yeah. And it very much what Andy says there about that magpieing early on. That's a Kate Cuthbert analogy there. But looking at the slide, obviously it's around a team. It's still follows the same sort of process that you have, you know, a team leader and a deputy there, and you're going to do this. Get in touch with your Teaching Excellence Award lead in your institution for help and advice and support about putting the form in and getting all of the guidance there off the AdvanceHE website around the photograph and the word count, things like that. There's video advice on there. The one thing that often gets overlooked is the VC or senior nominee from the institution's statement, supporting statement. It really does need to support the work and not be written on as an afterthought. So the sooner you can get your claim to that designated person so that they could really write a strong claim that advocates and reflects the work that you've done, the better. Okay, and try not to leave it right until the last minute. Is one thing I think I would stress and say. When you get the forms, you'll see how it's structured around the 2 criteria, and I won't talk too much about that because we've got some slides about that in a minute. And obviously the context statement. The people reading this don't know you. They don't know your context. They don't know if you're for all people from one institution or you're collaborating with 3 or 4, or, you know, I think it's up to 15 colleagues now can be named on the award because it was reduced, wasn't it, the other year? You know, making sure that those people from different institutions, so really making that context statement really clear so that everybody understands right from the outset who you are and what you're doing and what you're about before they get into the main body of the claim.
And if I may, we did a teal workshop yesterday, and Karen Hustler joined us, and Karen really reiterated the importance of that context statement, because although it's only 300 words and it's not assessed in the claim itself, imagine you're at a dinner party or you're in a really big room and you're mingling. Your 300-word context statement is that virtual handshake when you meet somebody to allow the reviewer to understand who you are and the context of your learning and who it is that you've targeted, because they won't know you and they need to have that way in. They need to have the door. You stand there going, hello. Imagine, treat your 300 words as an elevator pitch.
Yeah, that's
for
a really
your project and who you are in the context in which it happens. Invite the reader in, because 4,500 words over 2 criteria is quite a lot. It's not a lot, but it's quite a lot. And half the battle is creating the narrative more than anything else. It's a story around collaboration. And you've got, in my mind, got to be able to take the reviewer through so it's really easy for them to understand. Sometimes I think if they're too, and I read them and I read NTFs as well, if they're too convoluted, I think the reviewer is going to be switched off and it's going to be hard for them to judge. I think the more explicit you are aligning to the criteria, it makes it easy. It makes it a more pleasant experience for the reviewer. And as a result, it becomes easier for them to see how you're hitting the criteria. And remember, Dawne said it's competitive. It is, because you're scored, if I remember, up to 9. And you have to be scoring 8 or 9s across the board, because the positive about NTF and CATE is the claims are getting stronger. People are getting into the rhythm of writing them. But that means that the bar is high. It's almost like you're doing the high jump at the Olympics. It's set at 9 before you've even started. You don't qualify on a lower grade. You've got to be there from the start. And that's where it becomes quite challenging. But the teal, the mentoring support that you get and the collaboration in the team, you come together to create that narrative. Shall I move us on? So
So key dates and deadlines if you are thinking of submitting this year. So 12 noon Greenwich Mean Time on the 5th of March. And it is important to note this because the NTF dates are slightly different. So if you don't know who your teal is, you need to go and find out. Normally located conveniently within like a learning and teaching team or a centre for learning and teaching. So they've got to be submitted through the teal. So make sure you're having good conversations with them. There'll be EDI forms and all sorts of other forms to fill in. Oh, they're the same date this year. Oh, well, that would make things easier, wouldn't it, Holly? Excellent, brilliant.
But yeah,
good.
We brought them on the same date this year.
That's fantastic. That makes it even easier and easier.
Isn't it, Holly, that because they're the same date, CATE people have lost a week?
Well, usually we've had it different way rounds on different years.
It is,
but,
isn't it? So it's
yeah,
equalised this year. So yeah,
this year equalised, yeah.
just to say, I'm one of the new 5 national teal conveners, and we ran a really good teal workshop yesterday. So we had nearly, well, I can't remember the final, but over 70, I think, attended yesterday, which was great. So your teals have been prepped from AdvanceHE and from the teal with lots of guidance and tips to help get you through. And some of the narratives that we're sharing today, we kind of like developed with the teals yesterday, so they appreciate where you're coming from and how to hopefully get you through.
Yeah, okay, thanks for that, because that's one that passed me by.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, so
right.
Yeah, you go for it, Andy.
All right, so what we're gonna do between us is I'm gonna do criteria 1, and then Dawne's gonna do criteria 2. So in a CATE claim, you are judged on 2 criteria. So you're judged on excellence in collaboration. This narrative around, this is how we came together, and this is where I can go analogy, mate. People know me, I like an analogy. Treat it as how to make the sum of the parts greater than the whole is the kind of narrative here. How you came together, how you took the individual pieces and you maximized everything that person brought to the group, and how you consolidated, how you worked effectively together. And remember, it's a collaborative award. So that's the narrative in criteria 1. Criteria 2 is the impact that collaborative working has actually had. If you think about it within the group, I've worked on projects where the impact has been transformative on the team that formed the project. And they've been able to use that experience to go and then influence the practice of others, because the project has strengthen them, if you like. Their self-efficacy has gone through the roof because they've become very adept learning designers and have the confidence to go and share. So it's thinking about the scale, the value, the reach, the impact of the kind of work that you're having. So if I take to start with criteria 1 in a bit more detail, this is where it's really important to establish this from the off. What is that collaboration look like? And I think here it does need, it's sometimes I talk to people and I say, what's influenced your approach? And you almost get that, not quite sure, Andy. I think we use the force kind of approach. It just happened. To be really strong in your claim and to create a sophisticated claim, your approach to collaboration probably needs to be sourced or influenced by the literature. What collaborative models have you used? What literature has informed the way that you've actually brought a group together from day 1? And there are indicative examples here that can inform that narrative. So how did you bring together shared goals and shared values? So if I may, when we did our CATE, and this was 22, and we got our CATE for basically COVID transition, we got it for the work that we did to go from face-to-face to online during COVID. And of course, we were all remote doing it. It was a team that didn't actually come together physically in a room to make it happen. It was all done online. So in those stages, the shared goal process came together through online collaborative boards where everybody came together and everybody shared their understanding of remote delivery, distance learning. And then from that, we started creating principles. So everybody had a voice from that very early stage of that. On our most recent CATE, we went for I can't remember the name of it, but I'm happy to share principles. We went through the design process, design, deploy, discuss, develop, or something. I can't remember the word they were, but we used that model to help develop it. Now, we weren't successful this year, which was disappointment. So you always have to brace yourself as disappointment in this role. But what you do get is fantastic feedback from AdvanceHE. The review team that they have in place is excellent. And you will get feedback on your claim if you're not successful, which will help a second go. Trust me, it's really good. And yes, it'll be disappointing, but the feedback will give you an indication how far you are away. Our feedback this year, I didn't think we were going to be, I thought one of our criteria could have been a little bit stronger. And in hindsight, I don't think we were from the feedback read brilliantly. I think we must have been very close. Where we slipped up was we didn't put enough students in. The student voice was not evident enough in our claim in terms of how we actually did it. So one of the things I'd say is think about the stakeholders, make sure that you're inclusive and all of that, but think carefully about, are the students involved in that project? That's the lesson we've learned from ours this year. And our question now is, do we go again next year? Can we develop that student evidence in a year? And I'm not sure we can. So I think we make a decision, an honest decision, to say, no, we're going to go in 26, because I think we need another year to build up that evidence. So frame your approach to collaboration, have an understanding of what that collaboration means, how you review that process. I worked with a colleague at UWE the other week, and they had their CATE 24 winner in, and absolutely brilliant. Again, her recordings included at the end of the slides. And she did something that I thought that was brilliant. And what she did with her team is every month, as part of it, or so often, I can't remember the time frame, she actually sent a questionnaire to the team to ask how they thought the project was going. And I went, my God, that's such a simple idea. I had never thought of doing that because I thought it was too simple. But she then had the evidence to show, A, I've put a mechanism in place to monitor how effectively the team's working together, but also to review how successful they are working collaboratively together. So one of the criteria is, how do you track progress? How do you make sure that that collaboration is actually working and the outcomes from that? So it's a lot to think about, but crafting that narrative, but make sure it's grounded in that collaborative. Now, as a teal convener, I'm trying to see if we can organize some workshops around that. We need a 1 hour on what does collaboration mean. We need to find somebody to come into that space, and I'm working on that at the moment. But draw the team in, have that understanding of what collaboration looks like, and then develop that narrative. Okay, and that is the collaboration, not the project per se. And sometimes the claims can be out of kilter because it focuses on the project and not the collaboration. Okay, so Dawn, criteria 2.
Yeah, criteria 2. So thank you, Andy. So as criteria 1 is focused very much on the team's approach and their participation, this second part of the criteria is around the excellence of the impact of the collaborative working. So it's the team's impact on teaching and learning beyond their immediate academic or professional discipline. And just as sort of Andy's mentioned here, this is your place to capture another place to capture the impact on the students, because remember, it's students is often something that may get missed out a little bit, or not have the focus on as much as it perhaps needs to within the context of your claim. So making sure that you've got, looking on the right hand side of the slide there, as much data as you can, feedback from students, feedback from all stakeholders as well, but really keeping it and bringing it back all of the time to that learning and teaching, or teaching and learning, whichever way you want to say it. Other forms of evidence, and the best claims have a breadth of evidence that are triangulated. So you would have some data from staff or students that might be then triangulated with a quote. It may be that some students have gone on to do other wonderful things, develop new policy, have some awards, those kind of things there. The other stakeholders are key. So who else have you worked with, and how have you worked with them collaboratively? What does that look like? What does that feel like? How have you worked together to make something really unique and special happen, with these other organisations and professional bodies? And this section can include any achievements that you've managed to get along the way. So have you had any awards for individuals or for the bodies as a group? Have you had any funding successes? It's one to remember, it's not about having, books and book chapters and papers, but if you have had some publications along the way, or other types of recognition of the real reach, value and impact of the work that the team have been doing, this is the space and the place to put it into. So any sort of quantitative data that you've got to indicate the scale of what's happened. When I think about reach, value and impact, and we've got some slides on them as well, don't just think about the reach being geographical. It could be, national or international. It could be reaching a really hard to reach group, a difficult group of students, for example, who don't normally engage, and the collaborative work that you've done with your team and other stakeholders has actually had a huge impact on them, and then saying what that impact is. And, you know, sometimes as well, it's not always for next steps, but an indication of where it goes in the future is always, I always like to read, but it's not the criteria per se, so don't focus too much on that. But it's nice to get a sense that this is a real team together working to enhance teaching and learning that's moving forward, and it's almost like a juggernaut that's still on a path. You know, this isn't the end of what the CATE team are doing. You know, we're capturing a moment in time that, you know, this work will continue and to grow and develop. You know, you've got that sustainability built in there as well. Anything to add on that, Andy?
I've just got this picture in my head of a juggernaut going down the road.
A juggernaut going down. Yeah, yeah.
I just think if I go on to the next one, we talk. Dawne and I talk a lot, and she's mentioned or reach, value, impact. They're the kind of three. So you've got your two criteria. But when you create the narrative, these are the three areas that pin that. And we will sound like broken records today because it comes back to these three all the time. So I'll ask Dawne, if I do the first one, you take the second one, I'll do the third one.
Yeah,
between us. So if we do reach, this is the scale of your influence. And sometimes the way I would do this, if we scale this up, so the easiest way to think about it is take your team locally in the room. What impact has the collaboration had on the 15 or so people that might have formed your team? What's happened to those individuals as a result of engaging in this product? So when we put our second CATE claim in, we were lucky. We started off, and then we had a few people piloting it. So it was me, Medine, and a colleague. We were testing the water with our learning design framework. And you may have heard of Enable. It was an Enable CATE. And we started off, we trialed it, and then we were fortunate enough to then be able to pull in a small group of learning designers. And they became basically the engine room of the Enable process. And what we tried to make the point in our claim, and we had the quotes from the people as well. When we started, they were quite a disparate group. We brought them in from different subject areas. Then in 18 months, by working with them collaboratively, by mentoring and by coaching and bringing them together, and letting craft their own narrative around where they needed to develop, we've now got a new centre with 8 learning designers in it, because we've learned. Now, some of those learning designers have now become formal learning designers in the new centre. So that's the impact on individuals. Go outside the door, walk into a school, walk into a department, a school or faculty. What influence has the project had in that area? But you will have an influence via the project, but you can also have an influence by the way that you collaborated and share that collaboration externally as well. There are spin-offs that come from this. And then if you can, has that project had any more external reach? Have you been able to share that further across the sector in terms of what you've actually been doing? So there's a geographical reach there, but also the nature of the audience that the project or the collaboration was intended to reach. So commuting students, international students, how have you brought in and targeted student groups potentially as part of the project that did it? Now, the other thing to remember here is, and I think this is where the context statement comes in really importantly, define the learner. Because remember, CATE is open to academic staff and also to professional services staff. It's open to everybody if they can create a narrative. And it might be that for professional services staff, the learners are staff. It might not be students. It might be that they're engaging in learning and teaching development or process or something like that, but their learners are staff body, staff stakeholder groups across the university. So it's important to get that in the context statement so the reviewer understands the context in which you are operating. Okay. So it's important. So in each criteria, it's kind of like you do each criteria and then you've got to address, right, reach, value, impact in both. And it's that sustained narrative against each one of those that will start pushing you towards the 8 and 9 when it is reviewed. Okay. Dawne, value.
Lovely. Okay. So value is the benefit or the value that is derived for all of your stakeholders, whether that be students, staff, or other partners. Okay, so in this section, while what you're doing in terms of value will impact further on down the road in terms of hard data, you know, improved retention, recruitment, outcomes for students, graduates, outcomes, those kind of things. This section's what we mean by value is the sort of it's very qualitative rather than quantitative evidence. You know, that sort of sometimes tacit. It's where you're going to get your quotes, but it's how people think and how they feel and what's been changed in terms of that approach with your staff and your students. So, you know, things that are really hard to measure without having the qualitative data. So, you know, have the students or the staff or the group, whatever, because of the change you've done, improved in confidence? You know, has confidence grown? Have relationships grown? Has things more conducive to learning in the environment that people are working in? And that change, you know, what value have the staff and the students and the stakeholders taken away from that will, like I say, have, you know, impact further down the line in terms of quantitative. But this one's around that value. It's around enhancing their experiences and the difference it's really making to them in their day-to-day, you know, work and surroundings. You know, it can be all sorts of different things. I don't want to put a label on it to get you thinking one way or the other, but around the value that people see in the collaborative work that you're doing as a team. Okay, is that all right, Andy? Yeah,
yes, super job. Yeah,
super.
And again, impact. So
yeah,
there is we'll send the slides out. We'll give Holly the slides to put on. I think they're going to go on the Connect site, aren't they, Holly? Is that where we're going to put everything?
Yes, that will be on the Connect site, so TEALs can find them and disseminate them.
Brilliant.
But we will also send a link to anybody that's registered for this session.
Brilliant. The other thing I would also recommend reading is that AdvanceHE have got a very nice little report up their sleeve. It's a bit old, but it still works, and it's called Making Evidence Count. And it's a really nice document about here's the kind of evidence that you can pull together and how you can use that to frame impact. And that's a really valuable document. I always recommend that to people that are coming through fellowship. So what you want to do here is demonstrate, look, we've done this project. Here's some of the impacts it's actually had. So there's a bit of a team effort, but then you can start talking a little bit about the outcomes of the project as well in the context of where you've actually come from. So here it's crafting that blend of quantitative v qualitative. And the other thing you will also get, if you will get feedback from AdvanceHE about your claim. If you're successful, yes. If you're not, the other thing you will also get is the more generic guidance or feedback from the process every year, which is really interesting to read because it gives you the sense of this is what the bigger picture looked like. This is what's happened. And one of the things I think I've picked up from the feedback is sometimes there's a slight over reliance on qualitative, and there's lots of voices, but the quantitative's missing. So you've got to get that blend right, and be careful with the qualitative because it's easy to go too far. Your collaborative claim is about yourself and your team, so your voice has still got to be the loudest. If there's an over reliance on quotes, it becomes other people's voices. So you've got to bring them and use them in the right place to substantiate the narrative that or the claim that you're making. That's the most important thing. And those claims need to be quite explicit. They can't be the general, oh yes, it's been fantastic, it's had a fantastic impact on my role. They have to target the impact it's had on the individual. What's changed between person X, between X date and X date? How have they evolved? How have they developed their own skill set, their confidence level, whatever? So it can be quite personal. And don't be afraid to go and ask for that feedback from staff. Don't sit there and go, oh, I'm embarrassed to ask. You are putting a CATE in. And as long as they know what it's for, trust me, people will queue to give you feedback because it's and particularly, and hopefully the project's generated this feedback because it's had an impact. And you've had those really nice emails from people saying, thanks for that today. And this is the whole thing about starting and strategizing around CATE. CATE is competitive. You have to, I'll say something now and I'll probably live to regret it. You have to strategize with the CATE claim. You have to have a plan. And if you're thinking about collaboration early on and a strategy for that, you also have to have an impact strategy as well. How are you going to collect impact? What evidence are you going to need to put into a CATE claim? And you need to think about that at the beginning to put the right methodology in place to capture it. And then you've got it. So it's almost, yeah, the project's there, but in the back of your head, this could be a CATE claim. Let's work towards this as it would be, to make sure that we are pedagogically sound around the collaborative approach we're taking, but also the kind of evidence we're using to show collaboration was successful, as was the project. Okay. Dawne, anything to add before we move on to the next bit?
No, excellent job there, Andy.
Thank you. So
yeah,
let's just spend a bit, I'm not going to dwell, but just to reiterate, this is at the heart of the claim.
Yeah.
It's not cooperation, it's collaboration.
Yeah.
And again, there's some nice notes on this in the AdvanceHE guidance notes for CATE teams, but the essence of and the ethos behind your working, that's what we've tried to talk about this morning. And Dawne and I both sit on CATEnet. We're here to help, okay? And as a teal convener, we're here to help. And I'm sure Dawne wouldn't mind me saying that if you want to have a chat,
yeah,
we're here. You can email me. I've done this with colleagues that are going into chat. If you want to talk to somebody and just offload, like a counselling session for CATE, I'm happy to sit. I'm happy to almost take you through a professional conversation for the CATE and ask you questions to help you reflect on why you did what you did. I've done that in the past. We've recorded the session, and then you know, top tip. And I couched this because I wasn't sure if I was allowed to say this yesterday, but I did. But I will couch this under the subject to your university's own use of AI and the regulations, and that AdvanceHE trusts us as awardlees to check the integrity and authenticity of claims that are coming in. That's the legal spiel. If you've got ChatGTP, and I use ChatGTP, this is my ChatGTP ally. This is my best friend at the moment. Talk to ChatGTP as a group on your phone, go straight into ChatGTP and talk about the project and what you did as a group. And you can have a couple of people having a conversation, and just don't worry about structuring it. Just let loose with all your thoughts and put it straight into ChatGTP. Get ChatGTP to type it up, but then ask ChatGTP to do a thematic analysis on the content and see what comes up. Now, you're not going to cut and paste that verbatim into your CATE claim. That would be nonsense. We know that. But it will help you pull your thought processes together, and it will help you start writing, because one person cannot write a CATE claim. This is the other lesson we've learned, and it's going to take several goes. And my advice would be that the team that was part of the project should come together at the beginning to sketch out what the CATE claim is going to cover. That's what we did. We had a massive whiteboard and everybody chipped in, and we created a narrative structure as a team to put the CATE claim together. That's what we did with our award one. Didn't quite do it with the second one. That was more individual and we didn't get it. So you can see the difference. I'm sitting and going, I've won one, I missed one. And I can see the difference between the two. So work collaboratively, and then let a couple of people work on it. So too many cooks spoil the broth. A couple of people work on it, but they then share the drafts to make sure you haven't missed anything. And then that's the legacy of the collaboration, is that we work together as a team on the project, but we work together as a team on the CATE. And CATE is about legacy of, if it's just short term, your project hasn't had any value. It's the legacy of the project, but more importantly, it's the legacy and the lessons learned from collaboration. And that's why sometimes the timing of the CATE is really important, because if you come in too soon, the project is not mature enough to have the evidence to show impact. If you leave it a year, it's like a fine wine. It develops. It has a better nose. There's more evidence in that. It's a much more tangible narrative because it's had time to come to fruition, and those legacy elements are a lot clearer. Does that make sense? Right. Talked about wider.
I was just going to say, we just pop back about the team numbers, Andy,
Yes.
between the 3 and the 5. I mean, Andy's made some fantastic ideas there about writing it, because it does need to sound like one voice, and it's always hard when you've got 2 or 3 people working on the same document. So the AI thing's a great idea, just to get you started, to get your ideas down. When you actually fill in the form, you need to be thinking. So previously, a CATE team, and it will have potentially hundreds of people involved in it, but for the purposes of the nomination, and this is very much in the guidance as well, and it's there on the left hand side of the slide, it's typically between 3 and no more than 15 members, because you need to make clear in the initial section of the claim what the team members do, where they're from, and what responsibility they hold. Okay, so that's key to have in there. You know, so no less than 3, but no more than 15. You can have an extended group. So, you know, when you win, you know, it's a celebration of everybody who's been involved, but obviously just the core team members, please. Otherwise it becomes a bit of a free for all. And there are some guidance in there in the AdvanceHE pages around how you may frame the distinct roles of individuals and their expertise within that core team, you know, by giving them the name of a team leader, deputy, you know, identifying very clearly who are the students in the team, you know, any external partners, any organising bodies, that, you know, making it really clear, because that's a key part of your collaborative team, and then being able to demonstrate really clearly and effectively how they've collaborated to work together to instigate this fantastic change. You may, as a team leader and a deputy, have some really tough conversations of who to leave out. You know, if you've got 16 or 17 people, and I do know a team who won in 2024, I think it was, who had very similar conversations, because he had a huge extended team, and over time that team had changed slightly. You know, so I'm not saying that's going to be easy, but editing that down, if you do have 16 or 17, can be tough, but it is necessary, because it just dilutes your collaborative efforts if you have way too many people in there. Hopefully that makes sense. Sorry, Andy.
No,
anything to add on that?
I think the point you made, just to reiterate, was it's about crafting a narrative around that demonstrates the role that each person played. Analogy warning. Your CATE project is that you've been trapped on it, you've crash landed on a desert island. Your CATE project is to get back to civilization. There's a team of 15 people. When you get back to civilization, you can talk about how each person in that 15 contributed to getting off the island. The role that they played, the contribution that they actually made to the project. And that it's crafting that narrative to show how particular things were picked up and how they shared that experience. So again, it's 4,500 words over 2 criteria. It doesn't sound a lot, but there's a lot in there that you've got to craft to create that narrative. That's the critical thing with it. And it is challenging sometimes to have those conversations if you've got it. I've got that. We had potentially that this year. But with recently it sorted itself out, unfortunately. Right. Okay.
Thank you, Andy.
So just to wrap up on this bit, I mentioned about the feedback. So this is the feedback that came from the project this year, and it's worth sharing. I'm not going to go through each point, but it reiterates the points that we're trying to make about the mechanistics of how the team works, how it operated, the role of students, and that the value in the approach and the pedagogical underpinning that actually goes with it. So there needs to be, in my mind, a degree of reference to the scholarship that demonstrates to the reviewer that there is some critical thinking underpinning collaborative approaches and group formation and how you actually work. I think that adds weight and sophistication to the narrative. I think if that's missing and you're up against somebody that's taken a collaborative framework and worked with it and used that as a vehicle to help change, and they critiqued it and they developed their own, you can see that you're going to be short when it comes to the scoring. Okay. What else did they say? Some quick peek. The continuous reflection. And that's the point of this thing about actually having those regular surveys to the team to make sure that they're all on board. Now, you can do that a whole variety of different ways, but I hadn't never thought of that. And that is such a simple suggestion. Are you happy? Are we happy? What's working? Stop, start, continue. There's so many different ways of doing it, but it's capturing the voice of the team. And then that becomes evidence that you can integrate into your claim.
Mm.
And I think there was just an impact. It's getting the balance of that impact in there.
Yeah.
Dawne.
Some of those comments come up every year, you know, focusing on the collaborative approach rather than the team's project. It's one of the first things it's worth reiterating, because it does come up every year, and that true collaboration rather than it being cooperation between individuals. And it's about really crafting that narrative to really bring that to the fore. And part of that is by identifying the individual team members' contribution. I love your analogy of the we've all crash landed and we're all going to try to get back to earth. I'm going to remember that one, Andy. That's a good one. But yeah, thank you.
Right. Okay. So that's our kind of like overview. I've got an example to show, but I thought given that we would, if there was more people, we'd split. So the opportunity now is to we're going to shut up for a couple of minutes and say to everybody, right, we're yours for a moment. Any questions from what we've covered? Anything? Oh, how many of you at the moment are sitting on a CATE that's good to go, that you think, yeah, I think we've got enough evidence to go in? And would anybody like to share what you're thinking of putting in? Just to give a sense of where we're at. Holly, when I said, have you got something to, I'm going to start, I can see people that have got their cameras on. So as I would with my students, I'm going to start picking on people. Holly, your body language, when I said, have you got something? You went, no, we haven't. You went, no.
Now I know why students turn their cameras off.
So, Holly, have you got something, or are you building up to something?
No, we're at the really early stages. We're having conversations. It's in our institute is the TLA, which I assume is the same, the Teaching and Learning Academy, which we're in kind of early conversations with, and they're keen to support us to be the institutional nomination, which is brilliant. And actually, it's pleasing to hear what you said at the start about that's, you know, should be taken as a plaudit in itself. So I will take that from this, because you know, that's nice to know. But no, we're at the really early stages, and I think listening to all you've said, I feel our application currently is much stronger on criteria 2 when it comes to project impact, and reach that, you know, and all of those things feels a little bit more tangible than perhaps the first bit, which you know, is obviously the underpinning of it. You know, when you talk about the pedagogical underpinnings of the collaboration, need to give that some kind of serious thought. But it's useful. But no, we are very much at the early stages, I would say.
And Polly, can I ask what the focus of your project would be that you'd put it? What are you working on at the moment that's being potentially identified as in that CATE area?
It's about so it's the journalism department at Liverpool John Moores, and we've been working over the last couple of years really on kind of embedding EDI awareness into our curriculum and our approach, and it won a university-wide award for our kind of work in that field, but it did also win a national award last year for the work that we're doing by one of our accrediting bodies, the National Council for the Training of Journalists. And we had a kind of, we have received funding as well, and we put on a conference in June, which attracted some kind of high profile speakers from both the industry, external partners, other departments and faculties within the university, and other external, other universities kind of came to the conference and looked at innovative ways to embed EDI in the journalism curriculum, and to kind of build bridges with the industry and you know, what is essentially quite a practical course. So that's the project that we're working on. So you kind of see why the latter bit feels a little bit more
I think you might be closer than you think.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, if you want to have a chat with either of us, but I think there's, given that you've got it's how many of you were involved in that initial development?
Well, it's a core team of 3. Sophie is also on this call. She was one of the kind of core members as well. So it's a core team of 3, but the journalism department is 14 strong, and obviously you can't facilitate that kind of work with just the 3. So it is very much a department wide approach, at every level of teaching, from 4 right through to the MA level. And systematically mapping the work that we're doing. So myself and Sophie and the course leader, are the core team. But we'd be entering it as a wider department, I think.
I think because it's got the tag.
Yeah.
Got a very nice tag, a very contemporary, a very pertinent tag that is really a key educational priority for many.
Yeah.
We need a coffee. We could take you through.
Yeah, I think so. I think you've obviously already got proven success and track record with winning other awards. I'd just caution that focusing on the teaching and learning and the students, so it's about taking what you get and just looking at it through a different lens, and making sure any gaps in the evidence that, against this specific criteria is where you focus your attention. Because my previous institution had something similar. They'd won an awful lot around mental health first aid ones, but it wasn't necessarily a direct CATE, because it was a learning and teaching and the students side of things. They hadn't got that evidence of everything trickling down. So where you've done all this wonderful stuff and you're embedding it in the curriculum, what's the impact of that on the team and the stakeholders and the learners?
That might be your next bit. So we may have a conversation and say, you're a year away. Your job for this year is to go and instill that into staff. So the philosophy of students, but then for Reed is what you've done in journalism, share that institutionally. So for example, we get this a lot. People say, I've been to conferences and presented it. That doesn't necessarily demonstrate impact, because you can't track the impact of a conference. Now, if you knew who came to the conference and could go back to them and say, you came to our conference last year, can I ask you how your practice has changed for some of the things that you've picked up? Then you become in the right kind of narrative. That's why it's important when you do this in context. There's a plan. Our dissemination strategy to create impact is going to involve this. This is how we're going to manage the impact and track if that's happening.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you may have it and you already may start it, and you just need to go and find it, and hunt this information out. But it sounds like a cracking project.
It does. That's you can see it. And the other thing I would also say, and this is me, I come from a marketing background. I think a good CATE claim has a bit of a quirky title, something that attracts the attention. Because remember, if you win, you get invited to a really glossy do. Now, I was a bit disappointed this year because I love the AdvanceHE Awards and I've been to a few recently, and I missed out this year because it was in Edinburgh. All the years to go to a nice venue. So imagine that you get invited, you get up on stage, and then they have screens with your name on it. You need a really good title behind you. And people go, what's that? Something, if it's just enhancing EDI, needs a catch.
Okay.
And I know it's a super, but it just resonates with an audience when it comes in, and it raises the curiosity.
And if you're reviewing, having a good title, it sticks in your mind. And I'm going to say I'm a winner from the year before last when I reviewed, but it was My Dead Body, and it still sticks with me now. It's one of the ones I can remember. But it was a really fantastic collaborative, but it does help to have something that sticks in the mind of a reviewer.
I'll collaborate with the man that leads our PR module, and
we should be good at that.
Absolutely.
Polly, thank you for sharing that. That's a really nice example. Would anybody else like to chip in with one more, just to give us a feel of where you might be at? It's like running a student session and they've all got their camera. No. Oh, disappointing.
All shy.
Never mind. Right, they were checking their emails. Right, okay. So let us finish by giving you an example. So what I've done is sent as part of the CATE Net and also a TEAL, I've asked our winners, the CATE winners this year, to create short 5-minute talking head videos about their CATE claims. And while before I finish, I will also get Dawne to just mention to you CATE collections, which is another
yeah.
resource we've
Yeah.
got that we can talk about. But let me just show you this, and let me invite you to watch this. It's only 5 minutes, but it's a nice example of what people have done. So if I press play, I'm hoping you can hear it.
Welcome to this reflection on the Liverpool Online 2024 CATE Awards submission. Hi everyone, just start by introducing myself. Hi, I'm Dr. Lisa Day. I'm pictured here, I'm the CATE team leader. I'm on the left and I'm with Susan Bolt, who was a CATE team member who's also collecting her National Teaching Fellowship on the evening in Edinburgh, and Lynn Evans, who is Strategic Director for Liverpool Online. It was 4 main people who were developing the submission: Floriana Grasso, who wasn't able to be there that evening, and the actual CATE team was a team of 15 people. So it's quite difficult to know when you're ready to submit for a CATE award. In our case, we had 22 fully online master's programs which had launched across 2 years in partnership with Kaplan Open Learning, and some of them has got graduates now, and we had student satisfaction data and outcomes data. We had university awards. We also had external recognition in terms of accreditation. For example, the fully online MBA had been ranked in the top 10 by the Financial Times. So we had that sort of successful outcomes data. And we were also working as a cross-university management team, meeting weekly. So we knew we had the good basics of a collaborative approach as well. In terms of our process, there were a team of 15 that submitted, but it was 4 people who worked together to kind of develop the case and do the main development of the bid. So we started with a 750 word submission, which was accepted as the university submission. And then what we did was an Excel table where we gathered all the claims and the evidence by criteria 1 and criteria 2, by impact, reach and value, so that we had an agreement on what were the main basis of what we were going to put into the claim. And we got that checked by our mentor before we went forward in terms of starting writing. And that was really helpful. We also had fortnightly meetings. The 4 of us put them in the diary from the very beginning. They were really important for keeping the sort of momentum going, but also some really rich discussions that we're able to have there as well. So that worked really well. In terms of the evidence, I think probably similar to most people, we got data, statistics, we got qualitative quotes. We focused quite a lot on data visualization. A picture paints 1,000 words. So we're trying to develop network diagrams, maps, word clouds, things that showed what we're doing, but didn't take up too many words themselves. And in terms of overall lessons, I think the main one was that writing well takes time. So there was a long period from having produced our first draft to actually having our final draft. And it was a bit like a research process. It was, you know, a round and round of trying to refine and improve, trying to get it from something that started as quite descriptive, quite pedestrian, to something that was much more inspiring, something that jumped off the page, a story that really was worth retelling to others. So with criterion 1, what we really kept coming back to was how had we actually collaborated together, and how as a result of that had we achieved something that was much better and stronger than if we'd worked in isolation or alongside each other. And one of the fundamentals of that was these weekly meetings, these weekly online meetings, which, to be honest, started by feeling, you know, quite normal. You know, lots of people meet online, but as we kind of got into them and discussed the things that underpin them, and we were very much encouraged to really show how the process worked in these meetings, we were able to kind of pick out some more of the richness of them. So we call them campfires, and we talk about exactly how they worked in terms of being very informal, developing an atmosphere of trust. We've said they're very relaxed, but it's not a coffee morning. It's highly productive. So trying to really explain in detail how you collaborate, and then looking at specific examples, trying to find a really strong example of where that process has led to a particularly strong outcome that you can use in your case was really important. Good luck.
There you go. Short and sweet. But the other thing I like about a good Kate is that when I how many people have written down campfires? Because I have, because I think it's a brilliant idea, and we have a new centre for you know, our centre's called CADE, Centre for Academic and Digital Innovation, and I'm already going CADE campfires for teams that are bringing a project together. Dawne, our next intervention is going to be called CateNet Campfires.
I love it.
To pull those people in that are at the very start of the journey. I think this is where we need. I think criteria 2 can write itself. It's easier to write about impact. The challenge you have with the CATE for me is always criteria 1, because I think it's more problematic, because you just got to craft a story with it. So we got some videos. There's another one which I won't show you because it's 10 minutes, but I'll send the slides round. I've also got the link to where it is, but it's another 2024 winner, but it's about collaboration, and it really supports the story that we've been telling. Dawne, can you just tell everybody about the CATE collection as well?
I certainly can, and what I will do is I'll pop a link to it in the chat. So a couple of years ago, to celebrate the educational leadership that is really the essence of any collaborative CATE team, we put a collection together of stories, case studies from previous winners. And I'll drop the links in the chat. There's one that's to the blog. It was oh, if I can find my mouse, I'll pop them in the chat, and then you can be having a look at them both. Let me pop them in there now before I forget. Okay, they're available on the AdvanceHE website. But it's a really, if you know, just to frame your thinking, if you get a chance to have a look at the actual collection, it opens with obviously a nice introduction, outlines the criteria. There are some really good stories in there from past winners who share with you their unique USPs about their projects, how they worked together, what they did, you know, how they crafted it, when they realized, at what point they realized they'd got a CATE on their hands, and how they sometimes backtracked. There's a chapter in there that I wrote with Nicola Watchman-Smith, which is about the successful, getting the recipe. You've got all of your ingredients, but it's about putting them together in the right order to make them the fantastic product at the end, because you can have all of the right ingredients, but if things aren't packaged properly, it doesn't come together as a whole. So that's a really useful resource for you as well as visiting, having a look at that and reading through. You go onto the AdvanceHE website, you can go all the way back to 2016 and read about each individual team and their award and what they did and how they got there. And it's interesting to see how they've changed over time. But interesting to see the change of groups and how things do reflect current topics in education. So that might be something that you're mindful of. And there's a huge diversity in there as well, you know, so it might make you think, oh, we have a project there and we didn't realise that's an actual CATE, or those two projects could be actually linked together. So, and something then, probably if you are a previous CATE winner, because obviously you're on this call now, but it might be that you already hold a CATE from somewhere else or in the distant past. Just for our 10th anniversary, which is coming up in 2026, we're putting together a new CATE collection, which is going to be called a legacy. So what we're going to be looking at are projects, you know, 10 years on, 5 years on, what are that team doing now, and what is the legacy of that work? Because it's really powerful stuff. And if you want to be involved in that, do give Andy or I a shout out, and we'll see if we can you know, give you the information, and you can put a proposal together and hopefully get you in that. It'll be a book, so it's published through AdvanceHE, so it's something what's in it for you as well. You'll get a publication out of it, but it's a really nice document that you can waft in front of VCs and things to say, look, this is the importance of the work that the CATE team here are doing. You know, we are a lot newer than NTF. We don't have the same kudos, I don't think, in the same way as NTF winners do. It's not promoted as in the same way. We are working on that, and if any of you did want to join the CATE Net committee to support us to do that, you're more than welcome to do so. Would you say that's about right, Andy?
Yeah, I do. I don't want to be disingenuous, but it's because it's we. The impact on learning and teaching can be bigger than the NTF because of I think sometimes. Just want to pick up on a point that was made in the video that I didn't cover, and our colleague from Liverpool said including a diagram. Just to say, you can include a diagram in your CATE claim, and we did, and we've done that several times, and we did it to illustrate the collaborative process that we went through. Okay. However, that guidance does come with a caveat, because for every single word that you might put in a diagram, it comes off the word count. It counts collectively. So use them sparingly. And if you're doing it, it has to add value to the claim and support the narrative. But sometimes just creating a little visual to show how different team members came together to show the scale of whether it's an immediate team, it just helps the reviewer visualize it succinctly. And then you can create the annotation around that in the broader claim. But remember, words in the diagram count as part of the overall word limit. Okay. Right. I think that brings us to the end. Let's just do a quick recap. Holly, I had to update my numbers because I had last year's slides, and I think there were 17 awards last year, wasn't there?
Yes.
So
yeah.
if my sums are right, based on my last year's slides plus 17, there's 136 awards to date, plus or minus one because I can't add up properly. So it's a smaller group. You imagine that there's, gosh, how many NTFs are there now? It's been running. There's a lot. There's thousands of NTFs. There's only 136 collaborative awards. That talks about its value, that you are part of a smaller group. And you may have an so you know I've worked with NTF. I think Dawne is NTF and CATE, and you can go in as many times as you like. You can have multiple CATEs. The analogy that we work to summarize this workshop is we just want you to encourage to have your CATE and eat it. Sorry, that had to come in. That's I'll go home now. But that's what it's about. But it's celebrating the successes, but strategize what you're actually trying to do. And CATE Net is here to help. If from today you think, oh, I could just do with a half an hour with Dawne or Andy or somebody else from CATE to just to sound off and to frame what we're doing, and we can question you and you guide you through in almost like a professional conversation format and record that conversation with you so you can listen to it back. That's what we're here to do. Please take advantage of us. That's why CATE Net exists. That's why Matteo, yes, it's competitive, but it's collaborative because you pick up so much good practice from everybody else across the sector. That's why it works.
I mean, as Andy said, I'm fortunate to have both. I got my CATE first, but I just genuinely love my CATE more than I love my NTF. I found NTF very difficult because I was doing a lot of I and me, and everything I do is collaborative. So the fact that the CATE award is there, the collaboration is really just at the heart of what I do, and celebrating that and with colleagues, at the event, and when you do win, and you will, I had mine at Bristol one year. We were on the Concorde, and that was just fantastic. So you do get some really good friends. They do look after you, when you're a winner.
But
I should say, did we mention about if you do win, the embargo, because that's very, very important, is not to tell a word to anybody. I don't know if Holly wanted to say something around that. It's almost fearful to the point that if you win and you do spill the beans, they'll take it away from you. So I think it's just worth mentioning that.
Karen arrives on the door.
Yeah, sending the heavy, sending Karen. No, so we will let everybody who's been successful know on the week commencing the 23rd of June 2025. And then there's a few week period between when those winners have been notified, but before the official kind of announcement and the publicity surrounding that, which will be, I believe it's Thursday, the 7th of August, 2025. So during that embargo period, we ask that you keep the news of your success to yourself. And though as hard as that ask is really just to try to ensure we get the biggest kind of fanfare for the announcement on the official day. But there's more detail in the guidance around this, but we do allow teams to talk with perhaps their internal like marketing team or whoever might help get some of that internal kind of publicity in place as well. Yeah, we've never had to take one off someone for breaking the embargo, so I'm sure hopefully that day wouldn't ever come round. People have always been very understanding so far.
Thank you, Holly.
Right. So can I just check? We've got a couple of people. I'd just like to go around. I'm just going to do a quick register, and if you want to just put a thumbs up in the window for me, so you're not turning your cameras on. But Holly's good. Avril, the authentic one in business school. It sounds really interesting, Avril. That's got a lot of legs at the moment with authentic assessment. So that's good. Tom's there. Simon, all good? Thumbs up. Joy, good. Thank you very much. So this is just a health check at the end. Sophie, that's with Polly, that's good. Jenny, all good. Mark, that's what we like. Thumbs up across the board, please. Then I know that you've got something marvelous. Thank you for joining us. Hope you found it useful. We will distribute the recording and the slides. But just to say, you know, we're here to help. If you want to have a chat, please reach out to us. And we are kind of like crafting additional resources just to help this process go along. But as you get into the process, just be honest. It may be that from today, you're not ready to go. Great. We'll have a chat with you about creating an action plan. If you're ready to go, we can help as well in terms of framing that first draft and working with people. So please reach out and we would love to help. But good luck with it. Have the confidence to get going.
Yeah.
Because there's probably a lot more evidence in there than you realize. And that's why sometimes a conversation with us and that external perspective helps you spot things that you're too close to as you go forward.
It's true.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. We'll leave it there. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.